Well, welcome to the third volume of the Royal Ocean Racing Club's Time Over Distance series. Today's show will be a fantastic presentation, I can absolutely assure you that, by Andrew Dog Palfrey. Now, as a pro sailor, Andrew has won the Etchells Worlds twice and also the 5.5 Worlds. He has also represented Australia in the 2008 Olympic Games. And in recent years, Andrew's continued pro sailing, but has also become one of the most sought after coaches for a huge variety of teams. We're talking the America's Cup, Maxis 72, 52 Super Series, also one design keelboats, classics and quarter tonners. Andrew joins us from his home in Cowes, and you have got a ringside seat in Dog's Man Cave. Andrew, welcome to the Rorke Lockdown series.
Thanks, Louis. Thanks, and mate, welcome to my man cave, the Nerve Centre here in Cowes. Big thanks to Rorke as well for putting this series together. I've been watching every week, and it's been great. So thank you.
Great to have you, and we've got so much to look forward to here. And I've been lucky enough to get some of the presentation, but shall we kick off, Andrew?
Yeah, maybe just before we do, Louis, I guess in thinking about, originally this was going to be at the Royal Clubhouse at 7 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
This was planned probably late last year even. I did one last year on setting up your rig. I had this nice little model that I have of a keelboat rig, and it went well, and I was invited back. So we sort of made contact between the Rorke and I, and decided I'd join this series with you. So I guess I've never done anything like this before online. In these times we find ourselves, and I guess there's a lot of people doing it tough out there, and it's generally an unsettling time for all of us. So hopefully a little bit of entertainment and something to bring our mind back to the sport we love will work out well. Just a couple of things before we get into it, Louis. I guess, I think anyone that presents something like this, we have to pitch it at a certain level, and I guess in thinking about that, I plan to pitch it at like a national level, like a club sailor, I guess, preparing for a national level event, and when you're doing something, face to face in person, you can really read the audience and figure out if you're losing some people or not, or whatever. So I guess in this environment, please do feel free to ask questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to those. And and I guess in terms of an introduction, and it was going to be this was going to be about like racecraft, general racecraft, and some tips and stuff. But given the times we're in, we've turned it into a little more of, here we are, we're kind of in lockdown in various parts of the world, and thinking, I thought it would be more apt to look at the planning for your sailing, and when we do get out there again, that you've got a plan to get back into it, and then at the end, and some other things we can do in the meantime, like playing with our equipment, and then some tips on racing in general for when we are back out there. And probably one last thing to say is, these as you've coached me through, Louis, I'm going to be myself, and these are my thoughts, opinions and observations based on my time in the sport. But they're heavily influenced by all sorts of people that I've been around over the years, a lot of great people that I've been thankful for. But there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and we learn something from everyone. So you don't be afraid to pop those questions through.
Yeah, right. And easy way to pop them through if you're watching on Facebook is just literally put the question in the comments box. Simple as that. I've noticed you've got is that a wood burner you've got there in the man cave?
It is, yeah. I've got the fire on today. The weather turned a little bit. It's been good here, but yeah, got the fire on. I've been training for this for a long time. This lockdown scenario, I've got the man cave, a little bit of, sort of separation from the family is always important, as we're all finding at the moment.
Yeah. But I'm sure Kate's got got good dinner on the go, hey. But
well,
anyway.
she has, and that reminds me we've got to get into this because she's just told me, what time dinner is, and we don't want to be late. So
okay, right. So we'll just put you in the corner there, and talk us through what have we got here. Planning, I believe.
All right, yeah. So I guess the first thing I'll talk about is planning and just some thoughts on that. My good friend and coaching colleague, Rob Davis, he says that success is 40% planning and 80% execution. A good man, Rod. I'm not sure about his maths, but his point is that it's important to have a plan, but in reality, what's going to make the real difference is how we go out there and execute it and put it to work and review it and so on and so forth. And so I guess we've got to ask ourselves, what drives us? Where do we see ourselves in the fleet? Where do we want to be in the fleet? What do we want from our sailing? Do we want to win? Or do we just want to compete a little better than last year? Or do we just want to go out on a Tuesday night and have a nice race with good friends and enjoy that? Just wanted to talk a little bit about the planning and to me, if you're in it to win it, if you're planning, go and win these national championships, then I think of it in terms of being in a position to win, or to have what it takes to win. So stay focused on the processes and not the final outcome. I think worked with a lot of good people over the years, and they kind of aim for like being in with a shot on the last day of the event. That's there's a lot of uncontrollables in our sport, and I think as long as we're in a position where we can win, with our plan's been a good one, and I think also what I'm left with after a campaign, and certainly years after a campaign, is the memory of the people, the places we've been, but mainly what you actually achieved with those people. That's what I'm left with. So we've got to stay focused on those things as we go through our journey, and it's got to be enjoyable. Enjoy is key. So the slide that's up at the moment, Louise, this is a nice piece of software, but it just sort of highlights, some of the elements that go into a sailing program. This particular program is developed by 49er sailors, actually 49er sailors and coaches, something I've used over the years. And I like it because it's so visual. You can see all the elements that go into a program, but they're broken down so they're manageable. Yeah. And the shading you see from grey to white is the completion, or how strong we think we are in an area. So which then feeds into the main goal. So anyway, it's a nice tool to use, that one.
And this is specifically, a wheel designed for a 49er, but if it was a different kind of boat, we might see different smaller areas, bigger areas. Tactics might be bigger for a one design keelboat like an Etchells, for example.
Exactly, yeah. That's how big the slice of the pie is there is the importance level, really. So, yeah, absolutely. But it's just a great visual way of, not getting overwhelmed by everything that's going on, because you can actually see it there. But also paying attention to all these different facets of the campaign as well,
Yeah, brilliant. Hey, Andrew, we've already got a couple of really good questions in. I know that looking at them, they are going to be more relevant on certain slides. So thank you, particularly William and Matt. And we will put those questions to Andrew, but I think it might be a good idea to keep it within the slides when we're talking about manoeuvres and
Yeah, I
strategy.
think I see that one from William. That's a good one, and
Do you
we're
want
going
to
to
go
cover
for
that.
it? Do you want to go for it?
Oh no! Let's stay on
Okay.
track here
Yeah.
because that's definitely part of what we've got coming up.
Okay. Cool. So next slide, Andrew.
Yeah, let's go for it. Okay, so your nice picture there. That's myself and Ian Murray doing some training on Sydney Harbour in the Star. It's a great time. All right, so goals. I guess just to simplify this one, really there's two. The goal's got to be realistic based upon our resources and our skills and the timeline. So there's time. The two biggest resources we have really are time and money. With time, there's a deadline. If we are getting ready for this national championships, let's say, there's a deadline that's at a certain date, and then there's also time in between now and then that we can actually invest into the campaign, that we can go and train, or events we can do in the lead up, and so on and so forth. So we've got to keep it realistic there, and also the money resource, the budget, having a budget, keeping it on track, super important. And it's just got to be realistic. Someone that a mentor of mine early days in coaching, Victor Kovalenko, who we were lucky enough with Ian there to have us. To have coach us in the Star a bunch of times. I've heard him say to a few people that if you want to go and have a nice time on the water, it's going to cost you a little bit of time and a little bit of money. If you want to win, it's going to cost you a lot of time and a lot of money. And if you want glory, I think he used to say, if you seek glory, which is an Olympic medal for him, it'll cost you all of your time and all of your money. So there you go. But just before we move on, I'd say the most enjoyable campaigns I've been involved in, and this is not the highest level at all. It could be the high level, but it could also just be helping someone for a weekend, or going away and sailing with someone at a particular event. The most enjoyable campaigns are where the outcomes and expectations are met with the resources and the actions. Just sort of think about that one. It's no good saying, "Oh, we want to win this," or "We expect to go and win," or get a medal, or whatever. If your actions and the resources you have don't match that, and that mismatch creates problems.
Wise
All right,
words,
shall we
wise
keep
words.
moving?
Okay, next slide up. An interesting
All right,
one.
so-
People.
Yeah, so I guess we're still in the sort of we're thinking about planning and it's really so much of this sailing game that we play is about the people we have around us and the culture we set within our team. And I've just got some of those nice words there that we all see, and we've all been to conferences and stuff in our life, and these words flash up, but they're really behaviours, I guess, that the best teams have. And as I look at each one of those words, like they sort of remind me of people or anecdotes, and a couple might be, when I look at honesty there, recalls Terry Hutchinson, who's a mate and someone I've got a huge amount of respect for, multiple world champion and running an America's Cup team at the moment over at American Magic. And Terry, I've worked with and worked with him last year at a Maxis 72 on the Bellamente, and we're at the Worlds, and we had a bad day, early on in the event. A couple of bad starts, not really going the right way. Boat handling wasn't crisp, and the results reflected that day. And we were debriefing that night, with a big team, and we were going through jibes for memory, and they hadn't been sort of super crisp with the turn rate matching the sail handling and so on. And we were sort of getting right into these. And Terry, to his credit, he could sort of sense that, that it wasn't quite right in the room, and he just stopped it and said, "Hey guys, I know I had a bad day today. You know, I didn't do a good job. We went the wrong way. Our wind strategy wasn't right. We didn't get off the line well. We made some mistakes, and that's what created the results today. You know, however, we also lost half a boat length here and there with ordinary jibes, let's say. But that's something we can control. So that's what we're going to do. We're working on that now, and we're going to be better at those today. But rest assured, I'm hurting. I didn't do a great job, but we've already had a talk in the afterguard, and we've put some plans in place, and we're going to talk about it again in the morning. We're going to come out strong, and we're going to be better. But his hand was up. Very honest, and it just sort of helps bring the team together. Mm-hmm. And just on the enjoyable one there, enjoyable. It means different things to different people. For me, I remember when I was Olympic campaigning, and it's not always fun. You're away a lot. You sometimes you're not going well on the results, or things go wrong when you're on tour with all the logistics, cars and hotels and boats and you face some adversity and people would say to you, is it fun? And I go, that's a really interesting question. No, I don't really see it as fun, but I love it. I really enjoy it. So for me, there's that distinction. There's fun and there's enjoyment, and I love all that side of it. So keep it enjoyable. That picture there, that's the boat on the most left is Team Aqua in the RC44s, and I've been working as a coach actually for Team Aqua for the last 4 or 5 years. And Chris Bake, the owner, great guy, and his right-hand man is Cameron Appleton, who's the tactician as well. The team, the key issue there with that team is to have fun, to enjoy things. They want to win, but if they're not enjoying it, the alarm bells are ringing. The fundamental thing is enjoyment. And been the same with some great teams I've been involved with over the years. And just so on resiliency, put that slide in there of those 3 athletes you've got in front of you there, Louay.
2 of them have won the America's Cup, haven't they, Andrew?
Only 2 of them have, yeah. Thanks, Louay. You've got John Bertrand in the middle there, and on the right is Grant Simmer, 2 great friends, and we sailed together in the Etchells. And actually, that photo was the morning after winning the Etchells Nationals in Australia, 2014, I think. And John was an early adopter of sports psychology in the sport of sailing, going back to when he won the America's Cup in 1983, helming Australia 2 with Grant as his navigator. John's drive with his Etchells sailing he does is to pull together people that he wants to have around him and to learn from them, but to create a culture of high performance. I spent 4 or 5 years with John, sailing with him in the Etchells, and I loved every minute of it. And one moment sticks out was we're at the Worlds in Newport in 2014, big fleet, like more than 100 boats, and we went there to win, no doubt. We didn't win. We had a bit of a speed problem, but we were, we're in there fighting. We came 5th, I think. Out of 100 boats or something, and we were coming into one leeward mark in a race. We were about 15th after the first lap. We're coming to a leeward gate mark, and we had a boat inside us we had to give room to, and they had a big problem with their spinnaker and couldn't drop the spinnaker, and it was a nightmare. And we were locked outside them. We anticipated they'd just go and turn the mark, but they couldn't turn the boat up properly, and we were locked outside them. And it was heinous. We lost, I would say, we probably lost about 50 places. And but on board the boat there was no one yelled. You could see these guys had all the problems in the world. What do you do? And then straight after the mark, people just got back into their jobs. You know, John just steered the boat, talked about how it felt, and I was up the bows. I was sort of calling the wind and having a look upwind for breeze and stuff. And Grant would be talking about tactics, and we'd be bouncing off each other. And we didn't really miss a beat. We were all super disappointed. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, we just got on with the job. And after the event, you know, John noted that point, that was the thing he was most proud of. That was, to him, that was a defining moment. It was a great moment in the regatta, that despite all that disappointment and literally seeing our world sort of crumble before our eyes, that he just thought the way we got back on task was fantastic, you know. And I'm probably going on a bit too much, so just moving it forward a little, you know, buying into the goals. I mean, it just makes sense, right? But that involve your team or your teammate or into the goals, because they're the people who are going to have to invest the time alongside together with you in meeting those goals. That's super important. So even at the earliest stage, you know, just bring your team in, have them as no point just the skipper or one of the team setting the goals, setting the program, and then presenting it as a fait accompli. And then mentors. I've mentioned some of my mentors already, as Ian Murray, John Bertrand. You know, I've been sailing with Peter Morty of Cows recently in a 5.5. Just fantastic people in all, you know, in all the walks of life that they operate in. But use your mentors. You know, get in touch with them, ask them questions. You know, I sort of help out people where I can, and particularly in times like this, you know, we've all got to look after our sport, you know, to help get it back on track after lockdown. So yeah, there you go, people.
Lovely. Next slide, Andrew.
Yes, please, Louis.
Now, this is an interesting one. Equipment.
Yeah, so again, you know, planning our campaign, we've got our vessel, and can we make it better? Can we make it a little faster? Can we make it easier to sail so that we can concentrate on the more important things that are going on up the racetrack? And you know, I'm a serial tinkerer on boats. You know, I sailed with Ian Murray in the Star for 7 years, you know, which was fantastic. And he also is the king of tinkering. He and I together were probably not great in that sense. You know, there was no handbrake to say maybe we should go and practice sailing. You know, but anyway, that, and just a couple of examples. All right, so engage your inner engineer. Think about how you could make your boat a little better. So this one example is on the Star. We were leading up to the Olympics in China, and so what we're looking at here is the boom and the mast, and there's a strut between the two. There was a manufacturer making a composite boom, and our boom was aluminium, as with 99% of the fleet. And the composite boom was super light. It was like 25% of the weight. And China, light winds, quite a big rolling seaway. So the boat downwind in the Star, in particular, we run pretty deep, and there's no spinnaker, and the mainsail's critical, and the inertia of the weight of the boom, you know, would affect the leach tension, and so we thought, this is key. We've got to get one of these composite booms, but the manufacturer wouldn't sell one to us because he was working closely with one of our competitors and has had some sort of an embargo going on. So it was Ian's idea to say, well, hang on, what we need is for the tip weight to be lighter. Maybe we could push it up. And so we come up with this idea of this strut, which is a gas strut, similar to what we have in a hatchback, the back door of a hatchback, you know, to hold that up. So we tried it. It was unbelievably good. You know, it changed the tip weight from like 4 kilos or something to whatever we wanted. We had 3 or 4 of these things with variable amount of gas in them, pressure. So it's just one example. Just keep rolling on, please, Louis.
Yeah, another example of equipment.
Yeah, and again, a simple one, you know, and this is quarter tonners. I was lucky enough to work with Louise Morton and her fantastic team of ladies on board the Bullet for the last couple of years. And one of the weaknesses was light air, upwind, and it's sort of been told, it's generally never been a good light air boat, that one. It gets better when it's fully powered up and so on and so forth. But we had a training day, and we met up with Sir Keith Mills. So Louise's boat is the grey-coloured hull, the light-coloured hull, and Sir Keith Mills' boat is the dark-coloured hull. And what was immediately apparent was that we lacked power. And we weren't going well. Sir Keith's boat and team were doing a great job. They were faster in all the lineups. But quickly you could see that the Traveller, if you look at the deck configuration on these quarter tonners, they're all different, which is a wonderful thing about the class. Is you can see the Traveller goes the full width of the boat almost, and they can carry their boom. So in the most right-hand picture there, they can carry their boom well above centerline with a really, really nice twist profile as well. So they're not risking stalling, but they're generating quite a lot of power, and that was translating to forward speed. Whereas on Louise's boat, the Traveller is only as wide as the cockpit floor there. And so to get the same amount of power into the boat, they're having to pull on the main really tight, and it was basically stalling, and ease the main at all, you're kind of giving away power. And so what we did on that day was we rigged up a bridle, just a Dyneema bridle, from the end of the boom down to the push pit at the back end of the boat there, and just literally tied it up and cranked it on, and so they could, when they eased mainsail, the boom just rose and just gave a twist, some nice twist without going to leeward. So simple solution, turned a boat that was struggling in light air into a boat that was more than competitive in light air. So these are is what I mean. Just think about your equipment. What can we do? Doesn't have to be buying a new bit of equipment, So yeah, next one, please, Dwayne.
Yep.
So this is again on the equipment. I love this picture. I love this team. This is, as it says there, Giovanni Belgrano's lovely classic yacht, and Giovanni's so enthusiastic, and it's infectious. And I do maybe a day or 2 days a year with this team, and just going back to planning, Giovanni, when we first spoke maybe 3 or 4 years ago, he's sort of nervous, maybe not the right word, approached having a coach with some trepidation. He just wanted to be seen to be sort of not going over the top, which is good. And however, he saw it as giving something to his wonderful team of I'll call them amateurs, but to say that there's no professionals involved, but a wonderful bunch of smart people, and that we'd have a weekend where it'd be all about improvement with someone off the boat helping, and we'd be watching videos afterwards and so on and so forth. So he was clear with what he wanted to do. He wanted to engage a coach, and there was clear goals for that. And then equipment-wise, Giovanni's one of the best structural engineers in the marine game anywhere in the world. And, lucky for me, or us, that he lives in Cowes for more than half the year. And he's got all these ideas for his boat, how to speed it up a little. And most of them hark back to the days of the old classics anyway. But so the sail configuration he wanted to work on here was like an upwind zero and a staysail and stuff. So anyway, equipment, what can we do?
Andrew, tell me, you used a couple examples earlier on. You had Team Aqua, you've talked about Bellamente. These are all pro teams. Giovanni's team, although a lot of them work in the industry, in design work and everything else, this is a Corinthian team. So what is your approach different as a coach to a Corinthian team than it is to a pro team?
It's a really good question. Over the years, over the years, I worked a lot in classes like the Far 40, back when that was really at the Grand Prix level in sailing, and the RC 44 and classes where there's limits on the amount of professional sailors any team can have, and what I guess what you saw was that the pros almost cancelled out if i.e. The sort of the best boats all had really good professional sailors. So the difference maker was the amateur level sailors, the Group 1 level sailors. And I don't really like using that word, the amateur, but it's people that don't make a living out of sailing. Quite often they're really good sailors. But that was the difference, and it was how you got the best from your amateur group. And in my experience, they're quite often the smartest people on board, and the most let's say they just look at it in a different way, and they work with teams in their workplace, or they manage teams, they run big companies, or so no, I always huge respect for people who really at the end of the day, Louis, they're there because they want to be there because they love the sport. It's more a mindset, and what you bring and the passion you bring is much more important than a tag of professional or amateur, really.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Shall we go to the next slide?
Please. All right. So this is so. I guess we just spoke about equipment. Be prepared for the odd dead end. Where you're going to invest time and money into something that's just not going to work out. It's just something you need to be prepared for. So just have a quick look at this video, Louis, just as an example of that.
Here we go.
Yeah, so this is 18-foot skiff, Channel 7. I worked with these young guys for about 4 years. A fantastic experience, taking sort of 3 teenagers and creating what was the best teams. So hold it there. So what we did, I guess this was in year 3. Year 1 was very much a development year, and the guys came second in the big regatta of the year, which is the JJ Giltnan. Year 2, they pretty much dominated the whole year, won everything. And then year 3, coming to year 3, wanted to spice things up a bit and have some new challenges and so on. I think we had a crew change as well. And anyway, one thing we wanted to try was a pocket luff mainsail, and where the sailcloth wraps around the whole mast, and the thinking being that it'd be a big aerodynamic advantage. And almost like a rotating mast in a way, And so we had to have camber little arms, like a windsurfer or a moth on the ends of the battens that wrap around the mast and roll around when you tack, and the fitting of the pocket to the sail had to be just right. Anyway, bottom line is, we just couldn't get it going. We went out for probably 15 sessions, and maybe not that much, but it seemed like that. And you could see the main there looks reasonably horrible, and we just weren't faster either. It just resulted in a whole bunch of frustration for the guys and myself, and probably the sponsor wanted to know how it was going, and so on and so forth. So anyway, there you go. There's an example of a dead end,
Okay.
And it just reminds me that we've been on about equipment, and there'll be some people watching who sail something like a J70, where it's super restricted on what you can do. You can't change anything on the layout. It's super strict rules on all that. But still, there's ways to sail a J70. And there's little tricks with the way you rig the boat and so on. It's just, even though it's a one design, there's still a lot you can do, a lot you can think about to help speed the boat up.
Mm-hmm. Next slide, Andrew.
All right. Please, mate. All right.
Speed.
All right. So I guess now we're into we're sort of more into the on the water stuff. We've spoken at this point about the planning and sitting in our own respective sort of man caves and plotting all that out, planning our team and so on. But now I just wanted to sort of speak randomly, really, on a few tips, Louis, in no particular order, really, but I'm sure I guess that's what a lot of people are probably tuning in for.
And we're seeing two Super Series. These are both the two Phoenix boats, aren't they? Racing in the Super Series. You were coaching both of them. You're talking about speed, benchmarks, relative. I think that's why we got those two pictures there. What do you gain from doing those kind of two boats?
Look, I guess I worked with Phoenix last year, which was fantastic. A two boat program. Hasso Plattner steering one of them, and his daughter Tina steering the other, and a whole bunch of fantastic sailors involved, good people, and really enjoyed my time there. And a cool thing about that program was that the level of support for my role as a coach was at a very high level. So again, back to that thing, the expectations were matched by the resources, so it was quite enjoyable. But
you can two-boat test with quarter tonners. You can two-boat test with J70s and
exactly.
America's Cup boats. It doesn't,
Yeah, I guess that's why we sort of chose those pictures to show is that as we're planning our campaign, and having a tuning partner or a training sparring partner is fundamental. In an ideal world, it's someone you get along well with, a team that you get along well with, a team you respect, someone you like spending time with, someone you can trust. And really, a team that, you're quite happy if they do well, so you're supporting each other, you're sharing information. That's the ideal world. This campaign was the ultimate in that, because there was only really one goal, which was to get, hopefully both teams to the podium, but certainly one of them, as many races as we could, which it goes into as many events as we could. And so it was just all about getting better as a team, not a competitive environment. So all the debriefs were together, all the data was shared. It was great. So if you can create something like that, you're going to shoot forward both of you will shoot forward as a team, and your results will reflect that. All right. So we're coming out of lockdown. We're doing some training. We need a benchmark. We'll get our training partner. All right, how do we develop speed? What does speed look like? What does it feel like? I guess where I'm coming from there is to say that we want to develop our instincts. We can analyse data until the cows come home, but really, and we could look at photos and video and scan the sails and so on, but all of it's got to translate back to developing the instincts in the sailors. So that sailing's a decision-making game, and the more highly tuned our instincts are, the more likely is we'll make good decisions. We'll be ready for those decisions when they come along, and we'll make good decisions. So I'm not talking really tactics and strategy here. I'm talking every role on the boat. I'm talking about a trimmer. He hears from the rail that a gust's coming, so he's primed. He's okay. I'll burp the main a little here, or I'll drop the traveller a little here, and the helmsman or woman is thinking, okay, gust coming. I'm just going to get ready to feather the boat, half a degree here, and so on and so forth. So all this stuff has got to come back to developing instincts in the sailors, and so just a couple of things to mention. I think the two things that are most important in developing speed and developing our instincts. think about power to match the conditions, and as it gets windier, that we're still looking for power. It's probably more critical than ever because the sea state's built and the aerodynamic drag over the sail plan is higher. So we're still looking for the power, but we've got to bring the power down in the sail plan. And then so we've got power to match the conditions, and then balance is so key. So where is our power distributed through the sail plan? Where are we placing our weight in the boat? And how is the boat heeled? Because the heeling of the boat will change the balance of the boat. The whole form will change the balance of the boat. And then consistency in both of those is power speed, which is really derived, and so you're feeling that as you through your bum. I guess we say where I come from, just sitting on the boat. So happy to move on, I think.
Okay.
Okay, so back to the 7 skiff lads here. I guess what I'm saying there is, we've done our planning, we've got our equipment, we're developing our speed and so on. But at some point, you've got to put the work in. If you're going to meet your goal, you've got to put the work in. Your boat handling's got to be solid, and there's just no substitute for getting out there and getting out and creating an enjoyable environment once you're out there as well. Keeping it fun. But no substitute. Any sport, is the same. Golf driving range or whatever, and these guys went from good individual sailor, great individual young sailors, but as a team together, boat handling wise and stuff. I can remember a day, 3rd or 4th day on the water. It was horrendous. Big capsizes, broken mast. was all on. We think we broke everything that day. Mast, boom, bow pole. Expensive one. But they worked at it. We trained. They went out a couple of times a week in the nice weather in the summer and kept it going all through the winter. And they were incredible. They could do anything in that boat. In any condition, So
tell us, Andrew. This is a young team training, but it could go for any team. Occasionally, people have to miss training or miss a regatta because of family commitments, business commitments, etc. And a new person has to come in, and that's just a fact of life. What's the best way to keep the technique up to where it has got to?
Yeah, it's another good question, and I think as part of our planning, we'd have in an ideal world, like your crew contains a wider group than just the core crew that's on the boat. So that and it might not be someone permanently just standing by waiting for the phone call, but it's a group of people that might have sailed on the boat previously or sailed with one of the team members previously that is just part of the wider group, and they're kind of, so you've got a couple of options to call on, is the first thing, and so that that person's a known quantity and they come on with minimum disruption, and probably the second thing is ideally you develop a playbook, like a boat handling playbook. So that when someone comes on, that they've had a little time to look over whatever it is, an Excel spreadsheet of the different manoeuvres and the role they're going to come in and how it works on this particular boat.
Okay, cool. Good advice. We will get to a couple of those questions. We're getting into the zone for upwind and downwind.
Just a quick one on this, and again, just back to the boat handling, solid boat handling, and being comfortable in your boat will get you out of a world of trouble. It can be the thing that helps you climb back up through a fleet. Now, obviously, speed's always important, but if you're comfortable in your boat, it's huge. And I just bring these pictures up again of the 7 skiff the Starboat with Ian is, one of our challenges is we were extremely isolated. We did 7 years together. Our first campaign was really learning the boat, and Colin Beashall was working his way up to his 6th Olympics, absolute legend of the sport in Australia. And he won the trials quite convincingly for the 2004 Games in Athens. And then Colin stopped, and to his credit, helped us a lot. And we kept going, but largely on our own. And so we would logistically, we wanted to stay at home as well. Ian had business interests. We both had families. We didn't want to just travel endlessly throughout Europe and America doing regattas. And so we set ourselves up to train in isolation. And luckily we had Victor Kovalenko that would come up from Sydney. We were training on Pittwater here at Ian's house. And Victor would come up from Sydney. We'd start at 6 in the morning. We rigged up a gantry on Ian's dock. And Ian's alarm clock, I think, was me hitting the down button on the crane at 6 in the morning, and we'd go out and Victor would run these awesome drills that I still use today when I'm coaching or sailing. And it was fun, it was like 45 minutes, like it was a gym session on the water. But it was so enjoyable. And we'd come in and as with most things, the best thing about it was the coffee. But Ian, pretty handy barista that he is, he'd knock up the coffees, and Victor would do a debrief there for about 15 minutes, and we'd get the important takeaways. And Ian would be doing up his tie to head off to the city, and go and do battle in there. And wonderful environment. But we got a lot from one boat session. So I guess that's just to say, like, it translated. We got to Europe, that year. And we were sharp, we were like, oh, this seems to be a lot easier. It was because our boat handling was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And moding.
All right. Getting into it now. So this picture, still Pittwater, still that campaign, and again, setting up logistically for being in isolation. So we had a couple of boats. And are rigged identically, and same masts and so on, and this particular picture, we used to invite people from all over the world to come and train with us for like week-long slots, and this particular picture is Rowan Lord, actually, from New Zealand, and his crew was Andrew Taylor, actually, Raw Meat, the world-famous grinder, great man. Anyway. And we'd work away at, again, validating our speed, but we'd practice our moding, so we had good go-tos for moding the boat fast or high. Just before I get into that, though, we'd all two-boat tuning. It's such a good way to kind of define and refine your gear changing. And I guess what gear changing is to me is dealing with a change in conditions. Plenty of times I've been racing, in a Star, for example, around amazing sailors, amazing teams. I mentioned Colin Beashall and Mark Reynolds, Torben Grail, Robert Scheidt, Xavier Rohart, Ian Percy, you like it, Freddie Loof. It goes on, and Hamish Pepper, of course. But you'd be next to these guys forever. And everything's stable, and no, we're going good. This is fine. We're going really well, and then something would change. Be it a bad patch of waves or a little less wind or a little more wind, and they'd gain that half a length. And then you'd change something, and invariably it might be the wrong thing, and now they've gained another length. And that's where the gains and losses are. It's the same. All the racing I watch, it's the same. It's not the straight line stuff. It's the transitions, and so. I'll just say, for gear changing, just a point. The changes should be small, and they should be made preemptively, like with anticipation, and then they can be small changes. So, for example, there's a call from the rail of a soft patch, and I like that the call for the lull, the soft patch, because that's probably more important than the gust. You'll lose more a not being prepared for a lull and what you will a gust. And okay, all right. So now we know it's going to get a little softer. Okay, so you know the helmsman is going to see a little back on the jib, you know, a little velocity header. So the helmsman knows not to pull away. The trimmer will be preemptively pulling the traveller up on the main, someone up front with access to the outhaul would ease the outhaul, and all these things happen. So that the changes are small, but they're done before they need to be. You know, the weight comes in. It's just clearly an obvious one. You know, like or when there's a gust, you know, high carter. That's you know, quite often that's all you need to do. You know, depending on how long the gust lasts and how big it is. So make the changes small. The worst thing you see is when you know the mainsail gets eased a lot, you know, to the point where it almost flaps. And then next thing that happens is, well, all of a sudden we don't have power and the boat's out of balance. So the boat comes upright. The helmsman pulls the helm away because they want to generate that heel I've had for the last 2 or 3 minutes. And you're zigzagging all over the ocean. The heel angle's inconsistent, and it's slow. So yeah, it's just one thing. Make the gear changes small and preemptively. And so back to moding. Okay, high, slow versus low and fast. Really think about your boat's characteristics, and you know, like an Etchells, let's say 5.5 Dragon, you know, these heavy displacement boats, long skinny boats. They're generally, they have a VMG, like an upwind VMG or a downwind VMG, and if you stray from that, you're losing. You are losing. So we need to have a really good reason to stray from optimum VMG, which at the end of the day is the sails trimmed well and us sailing on a nice heel angle, you know, without the benefit of all the instruments that you get on the bigger boats. But, you know, sometimes, okay, we need to sail higher to preserve a lane, and it's going to make a massive difference in the race. If we can hold this lane, we're going to get to that better pressure or that more advantageous current or the shift that we're hoping, you know, we're lifted, we want to stay on this tack. So we need to match the boats around us. It's no point just sailing what we consider optimal VMG straight into someone's gas, you know, and then we have to tack, and now all of a sudden we're sailing away from advantage. So yep, and then moding fast, it might be we have a lift and we want to send it, get across the fleet while we're in a shift. So how do we go about it? Just a couple of quick points. In a high mode, essentially, we're looking for more power. Okay, and preferably or particularly aft-loaded power. So we're developing some more weather helm, essentially. So, for example, you know, a little more main sheet, traveller up, pop the outhaul. Is some ideas you could try. A little firmer trim on the jib. And then for fast mode, not so much dropping power, but decreasing drag in the sail plan. So less drag, particularly up high. So flatter shapes, maybe even tighter trim, but unlikely, but more flatter shapes. Probably less power, but just think about lower drag. So if you've got something that can bend the lower part of the mast or something like that, you know, you'd employ that, you know, just making that engine room and the mainsail flatter, so the helmsman can pull away a bit without heeling the boat, and we've just gained a click of boat speed. Now, it might be that you're in a boat like a multi-hull where the VMG curve is very flat, unlike the Etchells, i.e. when you pull away, it's going to go 3 or 4 knots faster. You're not really losing VMG. So you really play the moding in those boats around the wind shifts. Happy to move on, I think.
Yeah, great stuff. I love the tip on calling the lull being more important than calling the gust. That's a great tip.
Yeah. You're not really going to lose too much out of missing a puff. You know, the boat will heel a bit more, and yeah, it's not ideal, but the bleed from not being set up well for a lull ends up being a lot more. So I can see the time, Louis, and again, probably a little guilty of talking too much here. We going okay?
Yeah. I'm riveted. We've got a good audience. I can tell you that. We will get to those two questions. We're coming to Upwind Downwind. We've got a bit of video coming up as well of a start, which is awesome. Racing, Dog. Simple is the operative word now, and what's happening in a minute or two. Just explain what you're getting at there.
Yeah, so nice pick there of the stars. I think that was the North Americans in Marina Del Rey, 2005, I think, or 7. John Dane the third there in the foreground, and we can see our mate actually from the Star Sailors League there, Chris Fritchoff.
There he is.
There he is.
There he is. I recognise that head.
Yeah, that's his best angle too. Nice work there. Anyway, no, he's a good lad, great sailor. Look. Let's go to the next slide.
Okay, cool.
And it's all the same thing, I think. So I know for me when I'm sailing my best, or I talk to sailors that I might be working with as a coach, and after a good race, and it's clear that they're focused on the most important things at the right time. And I just pulled just a random graph, off the internet, and these boffins from the Mercedes Formula One team down there through a race, glued to the data, and so for me, at certain points in time, 1 or 2 or 3 elements of our sport are super important. The rest just don't matter. Like one example is we come off a start line, we've had a nice start, we're in the front row, we're on starboard tack, and everyone's hiking, it's all good. We can't tack. Okay, we've got 1 or 2 or 3 starboard tack boats on our windward side that's blocking us from tacking onto port. So at that moment, tactics and strategy, they just don't matter. Just take them. If they were on the graph here, they'd be flatlining at 0. They just simply don't matter. What matters is the helmsman being totally locked in, the communication from the rail being super accurate, everyone's hiking really hard, and trimmers are tuned in to what they need to do and stuff as well. So it's just to say, just try and keep things simple on the boat. Okay, so now that we might have an opportunity to attack, all of a sudden tactics and strategy are important again. Like whoever's doing the tactics, or it might just be a single hander or a two-person boat, whatever. It might be just a quick look and a discussion. Are we still happy going here? Going on starboard here to the left. Yep, still happy. So okay, all right. Tactics are not important again for another minute or two. But as we approach ley line, tactics are more important. Or as we approach the top mark, these decisions that our man asked about before, like jibing or not, start to become critical and need to be addressed in time. So I think we can move on, mate.
Yeah, just put up Matt Knott's question about communication, and I think you've answered that in part. It all depends what the scenario is, what's important. Is that a fair one?
It is, yeah. I think, communication, as little as possible is good. And the stuff that's coming out of your mouth are having some meaning. Otherwise it can get lost. The nuggets, the gold nuggets that people come out with can get lost. They could be the game changers, but they can get lost if there's too much chatter. Communication's super important. I think the communication from the helm to the main sheet is critical and much more important than the communication back the other way, in my view. So what do I mean by that? So I sailed recently with Judd Smith, who was steering the Etchell. I was on the main sheet, and the communication was gold. And all it really was Judd saying, I can't remember the words he was using, but it was all in relation to the load he had, or the height of the traveller. and it might just once a minute or something and just be, yeah, it feels good, or no, you know what, a bit loaded here, just drop the traveller a little, and it was amazing feedback. And so yeah, communication key, but more from the helm is what we're looking for. And I say to my message to helmsmen that maybe aren't so confident speaking about what they feel, just reference it to what feels right. So 10 minutes ago we're going really well, let's say. Bank that feeling. How did that feel? How much load was in the helm? How much heel was there? Try and bank that, because that's what we want to try and mimic, assuming the same wind and the same sea state. So and then okay, reference it back to that. It doesn't have to be, you're not trying to fly a rocket to the moon. It just has to be, what, relative to before, I feel like I need some more power. And that's great communication.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Hope that answered your question, Matt. And moving on to the next slide, Dog.
Yes, please.
Starting.
All right, so I'm just sort of a little conscious of the time, Luay, and
okay.
Kate having dinner ready in about 40,
we don't want you to miss dinner.
No, oh mate.
Hey, next slide. We've got a video. That's that awesome starting cascade of the RC44s. Do you want to go straight into that?
Look, why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? Yeah, I think it'd be good.
Okay.
So there's
no audio, so crack on.
Yep. Yeah, so this start is a good one. I in researching, actually, let's just get this. So 4 minutes, you just count us into 4, will you, Luay? Oh, yeah, I see. Now, okay, so...
Sorry, beg your pardon, that was my fault.
4:12, I think, is going to be start time on your counter there. Let's just make sure. Boom. Yeah, 4:12 on your counter, okay? So that we'll remember that for later. Okay, so... I picked out this start. It's just an interesting one from a strategic standpoint as well, in that it's in Cascais. It's the RC44s. It's probably the morning because there's no white caps. And in Cascais, it's generally favoured to go to the right. Everyone kind of knows, right, the right's going to pay in Cascais. So the race committee are onto this, and they generally set a pin bias start line, because they know that most people want to start up to the committee boat end and tack and sort of get on that long port tack into the cliffs, over on the right hand side. So what I like about this start is that there's some bait there. The race committee's given some bait, favour the pin quite heavily. So some boats will take the bait, and it'll spread the fleet out. So I guess the tacticians are thinking about right, do we want to take that bait? Do we want to try and win the pin? There's going to be an advantage down there. Do we want to just shift down the line a little? Or are we going to stick to our plan of being right at the right-hand end and tacking straight away and owning that port tack lay line, going right, being the first out there? Or are we going to prioritise light traffic, which is huge on a start line? I think if you could be away from traffic, you're just going to have a great little run into the line. So how long have we got to go here, Luay?
I'll take you to 1:30.
Yep. So
is, right there.
Nice. Okay. So what we can see here, just hold it there for a sec. What we can see here is that most of these boats are pretty programmed on a routine, because they're all kind of ending up, back on starboard at a very similar time, and they're all a pretty similar distance away from the line at 1.5 minutes to go. Routines are really important, super important. You've got to navigate your way to be able, even from 5 minutes to go, but navigate your way to be able to execute your start strategy. So when you tack onto starboard, that final tack from port to starboard needs to be executed so you're roughly on your lay line for the area on the start line that you want to start, and you're not too close, but you're not too far away. You've got some wriggle room, you've got some burn time, You know, if you're late, well, you'll never get there. So it's okay to be early, but if you're too early, you're going to be poked out way too much in front of the fleet and very vulnerable, you know. So routine, massive one. Practice starts. It doesn't matter, even if, you know, we're racing off the squadron here, the squadron starts, a reaching start. Have a couple of, you know, one practice start's great, two's better, three's better again, of just judging your time on distance to the start line. You know, and I remember sailing with Morty and Andrew Mills in Sydney. You know, we'd have practice, this is the 5.5s, we'd have practice runs at the start line, and we'd be picking out land transits at like, you know, and timing how long from that rock that the pin's lined up with now. We might be 4 or 5 lengths off the line, but we transit with this particular rock or a building, and okay, how long from that at full speed? We just do full speed runs at the line. We weren't so much on a time. Okay, so it's taken us 15 seconds to get from that transit to the line. So when we're doing an actual start, we've got our position, and it's sort of no longer about defence or attack. It's just us in the start line. At about 20 seconds to go, we're kind of getting close to that rock, and it's like, you know what, we're kind of racing here. So we pull away, we sheet on, and we're off. But without that homework, we wouldn't have known that. We probably would have been more tuned in with boats either side of us, and fair chance we'll all be late or we'll all be early. So, you know, some classes have distance to the line on their instrumentation, which is great, but still, it doesn't help you accelerate the boat at the right time. You still need the instincts to know that at 20 metres to go, it's going to take us this long to get there on a line of this bias with this sea state. So every day, it's super important to practice those runs at the line. So, okay, it's enough chatter. So let's keep watching.
1 minute 30.
All right, so you've got the committee boat there, that little white boat, and directly above it, towards the top of the screen, is the pin. The drone pilot here, big shout out to Francesco Naglia. This is his footage, and he does an awesome job. So what have we got? We've got about 1:05 to go. Mm-hmm. So it's good. So see, there's one guy that's just early. I like this. So here's up towards the right-hand end, closest to camera. There's one boat that's just tacked. He's just realised, oh my God, we're way early, and I've got to revert to a plan B here. I need to get out of this spot, and he's done it early enough to save that start, really. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, he'd be in there way early, no speed, either over the line early or parked on the line with no speed, and just gets a horrible start. See, I'm not sure if he salvages it totally or not. So what have we got there? Sort of 30 seconds to go. So if we hold it here, let's look at how it's all panning out. I think the pin is quite biased. So those guys are looking pretty good. There's not a whole lot of traffic down there. My pick at the moment would be the blue boat, the middle of the fleet there, which has no traffic around him. There is one boat that's just tacked back to do a double tack start, but it's late. You know, they're not going to have much of an impact by the time they tack and build speed. So I like that blue boat at the moment. They're going to get a cracking start and be launched, you know. A bit of traffic up at the windward boat, the committee boat end. So who knows what's going to happen there? Go ahead. Okay, so ticking away. We're inside the last 15. Getting close to the line. 10 seconds. Blue boat's pulled the trigger. Got some issues with the committee boat end. Boats are late, forced out. Looking good down the pin. That's a big gain at the pin. Okay, that's start time. And just let it play on. So again, you know, if we want to look at a goal of a start, it's to be going 100% of speed, 100% of VMG, let's say, when the gun goes, and just a second or so back, just safe. And the blue boat achieved that. So they're looking good. They can tack whenever they want. That one boat, I think, that was early and did the double tack, they've just tacked out. So at least they got the right. And interestingly, the guy at the pin here probably can't cross. So there's been a little bit of a shift. That's the beauty of this drone footage. we can see there's a little dark water and a bit of a right-hand shift. So now they can't tack. So now they're being controlled and they're probably sailing away from advantage, which is one risk of being down there at the pin. But anyway, interesting one. Happy to move on, Lou. Look, I should say, as we're running out of time, if anyone does want to contact me and for any of these slides or any information, whatever, please feel free to do that. I think Louis is going to put up my contacts at the end because we're not going to get time to spend on this stuff. But for me, I like to break it down into the 4 parts of a start, and I think we just sort of watched a lot of that. But the first point being ensuring that you're doing a nice job of generally navigating around the pre-start area in the last sort of 10 and 5 minutes so that you can get to your tack point on time. And then once you've tacked, there's generally some element of defend and attack. You've either got someone that's going to come from behind potentially and overlap you and hook you, as we say, which is bad, or you've got another boat behind you that was behind you on port and is now coming in from your left side on port tack, and ideally want to get them tacking as soon as we can, and then once we've got our spot that the boats around us are reasonably happy to windward and leeward, which is a great scenario, then we're into low speed control, so sailing a bit higher than close hauled, ideally on trimmed sails, like flapping sails. It's something that we don't particularly want to do unless we have to. It just helps the flow reattach easier when we do eventually pull the trigger and rotate to an acceleration angle. And then there's that, through that period, you're concentrating on your time on distance judgment, using the keys we spoke about before. And then the acceleration phase, which is it's we don't necessarily need to be ahead when the gun goes, but in an ideal world, we're going to be more ahead of those around us 5 seconds later. And that means we did a better job on the acceleration and used our runway well. All right.
Moving on?
Yeah, moving on.
As we say, that's the interesting start scenario. You were talking there about the bias, course strategy, traffic. They're the 3 elements. And as we saw in that start, Andrew, it doesn't necessarily pay to go with the bias or with the course strategy or the traffic. The scenario changes, as you say, with that shift up at the pin end. That bias didn't work for the boat that won the pin. So, do you want to stay on that one?
Yeah, let's keep moving on.
Yeah.
No, I think keep moving on. Yeah. A nice pick here of
this one. Stay
Galatea. I think just to keep it simple. I heard someone that I respect a lot, Tom King, who won a gold medal in the Sydney Olympics in the 470, once said to me, tactics are simple. I said, well, how's that, Tom? And he said, well, you either tack or you don't tack. and I mean, at the end of the day, he's right, And so we're going along. You need a good reason to tack. And what are some of the reasons? Are we on the right shift? Is there better shift coming, or wind or current? Are we too far out over one side of the course? Do we want to chip back to the middle? Are we being slowed by other boats? Or are we getting to ley line a little too early? And you just got to keep asking yourself these questions. And that's really how you keep it simple. Minimise the big mistakes. Are we good to keep going? And it's good to keep going with any of these scenarios. You just need a good reason to do it in your own mind. Like, yep, I know I'm getting close to ley line, but hey, I could see there's more pressure about 10 lengths ahead. So as long as you've got a good reason, just keeping it simple. We're all pretty damn good at overcomplicating the sport, and we don't need to.
Even on a Wally 100 like that. Same applies.
What a boat, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you forget the people. You look at that boat, it's like a TP52, but then you look at the people, like, oh, wow. And there's 22 of them or something. Or 26 of them on that boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
Okay, Downwind.
All right, so big point in the race, the top mark and the exit's super critical. So from a strategic sense, hopefully we've had a chat before we've got to the top mark about are we going to hold or jibe? Just keep it simple. Are we going to hold or jibe? And someone I sail with in the Etchells now a lot, and who's also part of the John Bertrand school or family, is Ben Lamb. And Lammy is super enthusiastic and super analytical, and really enjoy sailing with the guy. And our top marks, they kind of sucked. And we spoke about it a lot, and we put a lot of work, and they got a lot better. And really, part of the reason is that we just weren't all on the same page. And so the boat handling wasn't matching really, like the position of the spinnaker brace and or the guy and for holding high, let's say, wasn't matching. So Lammy, he came up with I think we had 4 modes, which was must defend, must go straight, cannot get rolled. It's a long jibe, or we've got to go this way for strategy, whatever. So can't get rolled. Okay, all right, it's got that. Second mode was just go straight, not really sure, but go straight. Third mode was we will jibe very soon. So we're going to set and jibe at some point soon. So don't worry about someone getting up high on us. And the fourth mode was jibe set immediately. So you've got to be on the other jibe. We get to protect on the other jibe. And so he did colour marks on everything, on the pole height, on the braces, we call it. So yellow might have been must defend. So we had yellow marks on the brace, on the pole ring, on the topping lift, and on the sheet for the set. So it was super cool. Like, it was a great way of doing it. And then speed modes, downwind, again, need a good reason to be high and fast or low and slow, downwind. But what does that mean, and where should people be? And, maybe just go to the next slide, Luay.
Yeah.
And just to speak that one through, like, the bigger the team, the more important it is that, but on any size team, really, it could be a team of 3 or 4 or 3 on the Etchells, like I was just saying it with Lammy, is getting our act together and knowing that in a certain wind condition or a certain strategic scenario, that we've all got to be on the same page. So one example of that in a bigger team is, this is Kailila, Maxis 72. This is 2 or 3 years ago, and there was always a little bit of conjecture in the debriefs about where our weight should be at given speeds and wind speeds and boat speeds and so on. So we basically say, okay, let's just sort it out as a team, and let's come up with this. Let's all buy into it. And so the upwind example in the picture is pretty simple, but it's okay. This is where you all sit above 10 knots, where weight's stacked aft. You can see got the big boys down the back of the bus, and that's the order. So who you're sitting next to. You know where you've got to go to straight away. And if the wind built, boat speed built, and we had to do a shuffle, on a straight line to more weight aft mode, everyone just knew where to go, and it was a very seamless process. And then those slides along the bottom there, Luay, mm-hmm. they're downwind, and it was more critical there about getting the weight forward or back, and those yellow dots all represent the guys and where they would be in the 3 different modes. So that was a good project, a good little side project to have on the go. Really helped. And I just say, just to bring it back to the real world for a lot of people, like, say that J70, I just went to a regatta in Miami before the shutdown, and watched the current world champion, Paul Ward and his team. They J70 is a boat like all boats, but it's really illustrated the different modes. They have like a planing mode, speaks for itself, and then a displacement mode or a lazy plane, then a displacement mode when the wind's light, where we're sort of going quite square. And then they go to this thing called wing sailing, which is where the kite's out one side of the boat and the main's out the other, and it's very much projection. And those guys were really good at wing sailing. In one race, they came around the top mark in about 15th or 16th, and they went straight to wing. So they hoisted spinnaker on the leeward side, conventional, jibed the main straight over, boom. They sailed low compared to the whole fleet out of the top mark. They were winning by the bottom mark, by a long way. And this is in about 8 knots or something like that, 9 knots. And, it just speaks to have clear modes, don't be put off, go to them, and then have a look around and how we doing. Are we going okay? Are we happy?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Next slide, Dog.
Yes, please. Yeah, look, let's keep moving, I think. A lovely picture of Fletch there. But let's keep moving, I think, Louay. Well, look, I guess, this is... I have a website, and without getting too philosophical about things, I sort of like to think that I'm helping the middle of the fleet sort of enjoy their sailing more. And quite often what I see in a class or at a club or whatever is you got the really good sailors and the top of the pecking order, and then you've got people that are struggling to get there. And I guess in my mind, sooner or later they'll just stop turning up. It gets pretty old. So as someone that's like makes a living from the sport, but just someone that loves the sport and has provided me with a great sort of life to a large extent. I sort of want to help give something back so that these people keep coming back and our fleets are big and everyone enjoys it. Everyone enjoys racing around with other yachts. So I guess there's 2 elements to kind of what I do there. And one is the equipment, and it's making the sort of little sort of secret squirrel gadgetry available to the masses. There's always the top end of the fleet. The guys are sort of always working away on something, and so making that available. But then I think more importantly is I have a blog on my site. It's called Dog's Blog, funnily enough. And it's just sort of sharing experiences and information. It's largely geared towards the Etchells fleet, which is a lot of what I do and have done over the years. But, there's some video interviews with Judd Smith about how he makes his boat go faster. And I did an audio interview with my old crewmate in the Star, Ian Murray, after his team dominated the Etchells Worlds last year, as to how they went about that. And so on and so forth. So I think, just to put that in there, I think it's important that all of us, just have a little thought about how we might give something back to the sport, and particularly right now, and as the sport gets back on its feet after this lockdown, and be thinking about how you might help on a local level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Dog, we're gonna show this little summary, I think, of some of the key areas that you've been talking about today.
Thanks, Louay. Yeah, look, I think in summary, plan for the outcome that you're after, and it's not necessarily result based. Think a lot about the enjoyment and keep the plan realistic. Don't forget Rod's mathematics. That planning is only 40%. The other 80% is in the execution. And always be working to keep the game simple, take the complication out of it.
Brilliant. And last but not least, is this
there you
how
go.
You can get hold of Andrew Palfrey. And just so you know, this live interview will be reposted on Facebook and on rorke.org and YouTube as well. So if you haven't got a pen and paper, don't worry, you'll be able to get this back to it soon. But right now, I'm going to say, Andrew, thank you so much for a great presentation, thoroughly enjoyable, very educational. And just while we've got the viewers here, next week, same time, same place, you can join us for a live interview with Skip Novak, King's legend, Fazizi, drum with Simon Le Bon, and his amazing exploration of Patagonia and Tierra del Fuego. So we're swapping it around again. But what we're going to do, we're going to play you out with a little video. And thank you very much to Digby Fox for letting us show this. And this is Andrew Palfrey winning the Etchells World Championship in 2010 with a couple of guys called John Bertrand and Tom Slingsby. We'll see you same time, same place next Friday for Skip Novak. Thanks very much for joining us.
In glorious conditions with the sun shining in this picture postcard setting, John Bertrand nailed race 8 with a bullet. He didn't even need to go out and race in the 9th. He'd won the event, the World Etchells Championship, after 20 years of trying. We jumped aboard to chat to John and his crew.
Conditions here were superb this week, so we're very fortunate. And I just, to have a team like this sailing, on the boat, it's just a joy. Just hardly anything is said on the boat. It's so quiet and serene with the tactics and so on. And because we're trying to balance Mother Nature with all the boats around us and, piece it all together, piece the jigsaw together. So just to race with a red-hot crew like this is, to me, is a real thrill.
I've just learned how good John is at sort of keeping the communication going on the boat, and when we have a problem with the boat, if the boat's not going well through the water, John's the first person to say, oh, we need to change this, and our tuning partners were saying yesterday, if they're ever quicker than us, it's only for a few seconds and we'll make the adjustments and we're straight on pace again. So John's excellent in identifying that, and yeah, it's an honour to sail with him and also Andrew.
What's the secret of the magic of John Bertrand?
Oh, well, I guess
Careful what you say,
since probably before Tommy was born, John won the America's Cup. It was pretty amazing. I was a young kid back then, so there's that aspect to have the opportunity to sail with John is amazing. And he's been sailing in this class for 20 odd years, and this is the first time he's won the world. So to be part of that with him, I think both for Tommy and I, it's tear in the eye stuff, it's fantastic.
That's it from Hoth, a cracking club that hosted a cracking event. As all 43 teams packed up, they took a slice of magic with them that'll be treasured on the mantelpiece of their hearts.